All right, call to order the July 7th, 2020 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. Can we take roll and then I'll make a statement about our virtual meeting?
So for planning board members, Kate, are you in attendance?
I'm here.
Kelly Cormier in attendance?
Yes, I'm here.
Peter Boynton?
Yes, here.
Aaron Preston?
Present.
Eitan Goldberg?
I am here.
Okay, and we'll try one time for John Simons. Okay, so it doesn't appear John's joined yet, Eitan.
Okay. All right, I'm going to read a virtual statement, or a statement virtually. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings provided for in the order. A reminder, the persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so, or by watching on your television, or by visiting northandovercam.org. Gene, if people want to submit comments during the public hearing, how would they do that?
So they should submit them via email to myself, and I will spell out that email. So it's the Jean Enright, the letter J, ENRIGHT at northandoverma.gov. So Enright is spelled ENRIGHT, no W.
Okay. So with that, let us begin the meeting. We will start with 180 Marble Ridge Road, Brian Magnuson, request for a watershed special permit to allow for the construction of a farmer's porch. All right. Gene, can you give us a little introduction about this, and then we'll have anyone on behalf of the applicant tell us about what they plan to do.
Sure, it's actually a request for a waiver of a watershed special permit. The applicant seeks to remove an existing landing and stairs and construct a 7-foot wide by approximately 41-foot long farmer's porch. No changes of topography are required, and the property is connected to town sewer. The location of the porch is just over 100 feet from a wetland boundary and more than 2,500 feet from the Lake Cochicquit. The conservation administrator has gone out and verified the wetland line, and she is in agreement that the property is not within the conservation buffer zones. Most of the existing runoff for this house is infiltrated to an underground roof infiltration system on the rear of the lot, and any precipitation from runoff from this farmer's porch will infiltrate into the ground. The soils have been communicated as being highly permeable soils on site, and I have drafted a decision should you want to render a decision tonight.
Okay. Have you been out to the location?
I have. So this location, for those not familiar with 180 Marble Ridge, the one-way section of Dale Street as you turn in off of Salem Street, there's a short section that's a one-way. Where that intersects with Marble Ridge, this house is located right at that intersection facing Marble Ridge.
Okay. Applicants or anyone on behalf of the applicants, can you tell us what you're doing and how?
This is Steve Erickson, North Environmental Services.
Hi, Steve.
I suppose you can hear me all right then. Yeah, this is simply a porch. It's going to require construction will be approximately 4 sonotubes or frost posts. Most of the builders are using the frost posts now, which are just pre-constructed concrete tubes or forms. So that's the only work that will be in the ground, that and taking down the existing stairs. So it won't be much disturbance at all. It is a good sandy soil, so there shouldn't be any runoff going off the site, and it's some minor increase of the impervious area around the site.
Steve, will the sonotubes be hand dug? Would not require heavy machinery, correct?
Not heavy machinery. It would be easy with a small machine. Small track machine could do it with no problem in 10 minutes. If necessary, we could do it by hand, but we would prefer to use a small track machine.
Okay. I'll go to members of the board to see if you have any questions or comments. Kate,
Nothing from me.
Peter,
Yeah, thanks, Eitan. I would just note that although it is reassuring that this is 2,500 feet from the lake, it is very close to a stream tributary into the lake. And that, of course, accelerates anything going into the drinking water supply. However, the stream is across the street from the location, and very good to see that they're making the appropriate application. So with that one note of caution, I am fine with this.
thank you, Peter. Aaron,
Yeah, just one question. The applicant could just clarify the erosion control measures they plan to take.
We would be using straw wattles at the 100-foot buffer zone to be sure that there's no encroachment into the buffer zone area. That would all be in an area of existing lawn.
And Aaron, I'll add, prior to start of construction, it would require a site visit from myself to verify the installation of the erosion control in the line that they put it at.
That would be no problem at all.
Great, that's all I had.
Thank you, Aaron. Is John, did he come in?
Yeah, I'm here. The one question I would have is, underneath the porch, would you put crushed stone, or what would you put under?
We would use a crushed stone underneath it just to discourage rodents and things from living in that area.
Okay, got it. Okay. And so I'm fine. I think the fact that, it's how the drainage is going to work is the key thing. And I think, Gene, you explained it fine.
Great. Thank you, John. Kelly?
No questions.
Okay. Our bylaws do require that for a farmer's porch, one of you be a farmer. So who is the farmer? All right. Can we get a motion? It's funnier in person. Can we get a motion to approve the waiver of the watershed special permit?
So moved, subject to proper follow-up and scrutiny. Gene, if you're going to write like a short note of the things that you expect them to do, I think that would be fine. Then waiving site plan review.
Yep, so John, I've drafted a decision. The conditions require the applicant to schedule 2 inspections with myself during the construction process and a pre-construction meeting with myself to verify proper erosion controls in place.
Perfect. Yeah.
Gene, one note. This is Eitan. One note on the decision. It says 108 Marble Ridge as the premises affected.
Okay,
instead of
apologize.
180.
Yep.
Other than that, if people want, I guess we should actually vote on the decision. It looks good. Other than that, it looks good to me as written.
Okay, so moved to that effect. Yeah.
Okay. Can we get a second?
This is Aaron, I'll second.
Second by Aaron, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with my normal far left. So John?
John votes yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Eitan, I vote yes. Peter?
Yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Approved. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the Magnusons, I will finalize this draft, convert it to a final, file it with the clerk's office, and mail you a copy.
Great.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Is there an appeal period? Sorry to just ask, is there some sort of appeal period that we need to wait?
There is not on a waiver,
Okay.
and I approve the building permit too. I trust you have a building permit application in, so I can approve it in the morning.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, moving on around the corner, maybe 96 Dale Street. Nicholas Gilbert requests for a watershed special permit to allow for the construction of an extension to an existing deck.
So you're correct. You're correct, Aton. It's around the corner. So if you continue over the intersection of Marble Ridge, 96 Dale Street is on the left. John and Peter, you may recall that in 2013, these two houses received a watershed special permit. So these two houses are just before Beringer Place. 96 is the one closest to Beringer Place. So it went through a full watershed special permit, stormwater review, everything was in order at the initial construction of the house. So the applicant now is requesting a waiver in order to extend and reconfigure an existing deck. The extension would total 384 square feet expansion. It's within the non-discharge buffer zone. The construction will not disturb existing topography. The property is connected to town sewer. A wetland plan from that filing in 2013 was included in the packet. It was supplemental information at that time. And there is an existing patio below this deck. And so in your packet, you have a picture of the existing deck. You have a sketch of where the expansion will take place, and you have deck plans as well. And again, this is utilizing sonotube installation. And so today we have the property owners here if you have any questions. And I have drafted a decision for this one as well.
Okay, can we hear from the applicants for 96 Dale Street?
Yep. First of all, this is not a farmer's porch. It's a
Okay,
lazy
no
person's
farm. Perfect.
It's our dog's deck. Yeah.
So we hope to extend the existing deck across the back of the house. As Gene said, adding almost 400 square feet. We are going to do sonotubes in the plan. There's 5 large ones and then 4 smaller ones to support the stairs that will be like scissored, come down, and then a platform and then down the other side. So 8 steps down, 8, and then a platform and 8 steps down. So there is drainage there. The drainage rock is under there. So I don't know what other details I can provide.
Okay, well, let's see if we have any questions. We'll start. Kelly, do you have any questions, comments?
I do not have any questions.
Kate, any questions or comments?
No, no questions.
Okay, Peter?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any either. Aaron?
I have nothing.
John?
I'm fine.
Okay, so let's just looking. I'm just going to we'll look over the draft decision, please. Okay, I don't see any issues. The decision looks good. So could we get a motion to approve the decision as drafted?
So moved.
John
Could we get
Simon.
moved by John. Could we get a second, please?
This is Kate.
Aaron,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Yeah. All right, second by Aaron. All in favor. So John, how do you vote?
John votes yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Eitan, I vote yes. Peter?
Peter, yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, approved.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, so the same applies. I can approve a building permit in the morning. You'll get a copy in the mail, and I will file a copy at the clerk's office.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
All right, let's go into a continued public hearing, 210 Holt Road. I'm going to read a statement before we start the hearing. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This public hearing of the North Andover Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can listen to this meeting or view this meeting while in progress, either on the television or by visiting www.northandovercam.org. If members of the public attending or viewing wish to make comments, they may do so by emailing the planning director, Ms. Enright. So could you give your email address again, please?
Yeah, so the email address is the letter J, Enright, ENRIGHT at northandoverma.gov.
Very good. So if anyone who's watching or listening and wishes to make a comment regarding this public hearing may do so. I note that it is very likely that we will end this public hearing today and vote on this application. So if anyone does have a comment, please submit that. Okay, Jean, can you tell us where we stand in the process for this?
Yes, so this application's been on your agenda and continued for some time. The hearing opened on January 7th when you received some initial information. The next hearing that you received was on April 14th. All the answers were provided to the January discussion questions. The applicant has since been before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit to allow for this use. It's considered a recreational use for the shooting range. It's an indoor facility. The proposal includes an application for construction of a 25-foot by 75-foot addition to an existing building to allow for an indoor shooting range. I'm sorry, if you're not speaking at this time, can you guys mute your computer? Some feedback coming. Thank you. So this is a mixed-use facility with an existing vehicle maintenance garage and office use that will both remain. The applicant, as I stated, was last before the board on April 14th. The ZBA granted their approval on June 22nd. The proposal is within the Industrial 2 zoning district. All board comments as well as department review comments have been addressed with the exception of the health department. So the health department requested a Title V inspection as well as a capacity analysis. Having not received those yet, I've drafted a decision that conditions those requests being satisfied prior to any site work or building permit being issued. And as I stated, I've drafted a decision. I do have some comments on that decision before you close the public hearing. So I don't know if you want to open up to questions, Eitan, but I've included a couple of red line items in the decision that I allowed the applicant and their attorney to review my decision, and a couple of comments that came back, in my opinion, hasn't really been before this board. I think they were discussed a lot with the ZBA, but I did want to raise those, and I did want the applicant to speak to both the types of weapons that will be included in terms of live fire weapons that will be allowed. Earlier, I think in January, you discussed prohibiting automatic weapons, and that is the case in the decision, but I don't have a lot of experience with this type of use, and so I want to make sure you're comfortable with the type of live fire that will be allowed, as well as the hours of operation. I included a finding of fact because the applicants did testify to what they envisioned for operating hours. However, the ZBA decision did allow for, in condition, 24/7 access to the building for members only. And again, I just asked that the applicants explain that and how that would work to this board, because I did not see that in the testimony before you yet.
Okay, so why don't we hear from the applicant about some of the items in the draft decision that are to be discussed, as well as I think the kind of key points that we raised at prior hearing included noise. So what's been done to address any concerns about that, safety, how safety plans are going to work, and then I think there was some questions about lead or copper or particulates that coming into the air and being dealt with, how that would work. And then the parking spaces, I think that was an item of discussion. So those, from my memory, are the kind of the bigger items of discussion. And if any members of the board have other ones, please let the applicant know so they can address that as well. So who do we have to speak for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
members of the board, it's Kevin Foley.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, I also have Jennifer Thompson with me. She's online on a separate telephone. I'm calling you from outside of the Commonwealth tonight, and I'm hopeful that my Wi-Fi connection is such that you can hear me okay and we don't have any interruptions.
So far, so good.
I'm anticipating, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that my remarks are going to be brief, and I'll go to the questions and the concerns and the comments that were just made by the planner with regard to the draft decision. For the record, this is Kevin Foley. I'm a 32-year resident of North Andover, 52 Hewitt Ave. Also have a law practice in Newburyport. I represent the petitioner, MMD Shooting LLC, and the applicant, Jennifer Thompson, who I mentioned is online with us. It's a continued hearing on our application for a special permit for a recreational use in an industrial zone, and also a site plan review and special permit for common parking for a multi-use facility. I last appeared before the board on April the 14th, and at that time, Mr. Chairman, I provided the board with a plethora of information regarding noise, air quality, construction, parking, retail sales, operations, and governance. In my communications and conversations with the town planner during the past week, I discovered that although we had discussed the proposed hours of operation in the context of common parking, that is, the hours of the proposed range are different from the existing use, the last time we had really not discussed the 24-hour access that's part of our application for members of the range. And although there's some reference to it in our SOP, that is the supplemental part of the SOP that was provided in the packet to this board on February the 28th, the last two pages have an outline of sort of the safety procedures and how it would work for the general public coming in there during normal business hours, and someone coming in there who was a member after hours during the 24-hour access. That wasn't the packet, but we really hadn't discussed it at our last meeting, and I apologize for that. I know that we discussed it at length over the last 6 months with the ZBA, but so I may have gotten confused and didn't bring it up at our last meeting. So I'd like to take a minute or two tonight just to discuss that proposal and sort of the rationale for the 24-hour access and answer any of the members' questions about that. But first, I'd just like to take 60 seconds or so just to summarize what we discussed the last time and what has happened since. The board may recall me telling you the last time, at the request of the planner and the planning, a planner in the town, I had provided to the police department and the fire chief with copies of all our plans and everything we had submitted to the planning board and to the ZBA. And the police chief had sent an email to the planning board with a favorable opinion of those plans. I also provide you with a little information about our applicant, Jennifer Thompson, a 14-year resident of North Andover, married to Jeff Thompson, 2 school-age children, ages 8 and 9. Jeff has run a business in North Andover for more than 2 decades. Jen has a master's degree in business administration from Regis. She's been around shooting her entire life, has a license to carry, her FFL, and she really wants to create a state-of-the-art type of a range with live shooting, air gun shooting, virtual shooting, and having education as a central and integral component where there's going to be training for the safe and proper use of firearms. You may recall that we discussed a little bit the governance, the operations and governance and oversight under General Laws, Chapter 140. That's really in the province of the Chief of Police in North Andover. We've already applied for a license to operate in the retail part of it with the Chief of Police, and we're working actively with the chief and his staff on that. The last time I also discussed the parking, we had proposed, Mr. Chairman, 43 spots based on categories in the bylaw. Then we had a meeting with the building inspector, and he just calculated 77 spots needed based on the size of the facility. We have no qualms with that. Of course, the town bylaw allows for a reduction in the standard when the peak hours of the mixed use are so different from the existing use that the lower amount would be adequate for parking. And the bylaw also allows for a waiver of the parking study, which we asked the board to waive. The planning board had requested we provide revised plans, showing the location of those potential spaces on the site, the size of the spaces on the plans. And on May the 6th, we provided full-size plans from our engineer, along with 8.5 by 11 sizes and delivered them to town hall. I think the planner can verify that those plans were submitted at that time. The board also had requested that we get a Title V certification based on a request from the Board of Health. And since that last time we met in April, we've had the system inspected, and it turns out that we need to replace what they call the distribution box in the system. And we hired a local contractor by the name of Peter Breen, who has already pulled a permit to do that work. So after that work is completed, we'll get the Title V certification that the board has requested in order to begin the work. With regard to noise control, you may remember that we discussed the finding by our noise consultant, who is also an acoustical engineer with 40 years experience, that he measured the proposed site from the proposed residential facility out there at Princeton Place on Google Maps. I think he came up with like 1,900 feet from this site on 210 Holt Road to Princeton Place. And he used 1,500 feet to do his study. And he found out that it would be 23 dB, but with absorption, it would be 19 dB. Well, 23 dB is below background noise. 19 dB, there's virtually no chance of hearing any shooting down there at Princeton Place. In fact, just outside the wall of the facility would be 73 dB. It's 75 dB in a crowded restaurant, if we can all remember what it sounds like to be inside of a restaurant, and 43 dB at the property line. So virtually there's no chance of any noise being heard by any neighbors. Plus, this is in an industrial zone. With regard to construction, we talked about the walls, ceilings, HVAC, the strength of the facility to contain loud rounds, making sure the PELs with the air circulation system would be in compliance with OSHA requirements. And we provided proposed plans that are going to be referenced in the draft decision that the town planner has prepared. Those plans were drawn by an architect, not an engineer, and we anticipate working closely with the building inspector to ensure the proposed facility is going to be built in accordance with state building code. And you're probably aware that you have my edits to the draft decision. I added the term accepted engineering practices to paragraph 28 of that draft decision. After further review, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest a little more specificity, that after the term accepted engineering practices, that we add in accordance with UL 752 level 8 standard. So after the terms accepted engineering practices, add in accordance with UL, which is Underwriters Laboratory, UL 752 level 8 standard. And that goes to the quality of the products that are going to be used in the facility to ensure containment of the largest type of round we would ever be used in the facility. And so, just to ensure that, obviously we're going to work with the building inspector, but I think that would probably, be probably proper to have that language in there. As the town planner mentioned, on June the 9th, the ZBA voted a 5-0 vote to approve the special permits for the use in an industrial zone of a recreational use in an industrial zone for the facility. And they conditioned it allowing 24-hour access to members only. Members only people that have a license to carry. So in order to become a member, you have to have a license to carry, which means you go through a background check and the whole 9 yards. We had actually proposed to allow, members to bring a single guest with them after hours. The ZBA really was not comfortable with that, so conditioned their approval on 24 hours access to members only. And they also required, as a condition, that the annual review of members' license to carry status be reviewed at the facility. With that, I'd like to just give you a word about the 24-hour access and the rationale for allowing it. It's extremely common in the industry, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. In fact, our consultant, Jerry Gallo, who spent 34 years in the ATF and is a trainer for the Mass State Police and Homeland Security NRA for safe use of firearms, has visited in his career hundreds of facilities, and all of them are 24-hour access. So quite frankly, we need 24-hour access in order to compete. Indeed, the Andover Gun Club, which is located in North Andover, has 24-hour access. So we really need the 24-hour access to compete with other ranges. You know, we want to be able to stay in business and to thrive and to fulfill our stewardship for training for the proper and safe use of firearms. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is a practical one that we anticipate because many of the members of the range will be first responders who are going to work second, third shifts. They're probably not going to be able to avail themselves of the facility during the normal business hours unless they have 24-hour access. And while on the subject of hours, I'd just like to clarify for the record that we are proposing hours during the weekdays, that is Sunday through Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on the weekends, Friday and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so, so for all those reasons, I just wanted to bring you up to date and see if the members had any questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Foley. Can you give me your opinion on number 30 in the draft decision about no automatic weapons for live fire shall be used in the facility?
We have no, I've reviewed that entire decision. You have my edits. I have no problem with that language, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right.
In fact, with regard to weapon use, the only weapons that are going to be used are those that are allowed by state law. It's a 75-foot range, so it's going to be primarily pistols. I suppose there may be some people that might want to bring a small rifle or a shotgun in, but it's 75 feet, so I don't know how much you're going to see of that. But as I mentioned during our last hearing, we're really restricted on what guns can be used. The Attorney General restricts what kind of firearms can be bought, sold, and used in the Commonwealth. The Executive Office of Public Safety and Security also has a say in that. In the Department of Criminal Justice and Training Systems, they monitor what kind of weapons are used and what kind of weapons are sold in the Commonwealth. And there are strict guidelines, in fact, criminal penalties for selling or using or possessing or anything like that, those types of weapons. That would really jeopardize our license with the Chief of Police to operate the facility and also the retail use of the facility. So we're going to be in strict compliance with those laws and those provisions and those regulations.
And Kevin, just for clarification, automatic weapons cannot be sold in the state of Massachusetts.
I believe that's what the Attorney General said in the package that I submitted to the board on February 28th.
Okay. That's
so
fully automatic.
In fact,
weapons.
Fully automatic weapons. Now, you may see in the draft that you sent me that I had kind of crossed out that with regard to air guns, because I don't think we have any problems with having someone bring in a pellet gun that can shoot in an automatic way, because it's not live fire. So for live fire guns, automatic weapons are not going to be used.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go to questions. John, any questions or comments?
Hey, Tom, we'll wait.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Aaron, any questions or Gene? We'll come to you at the end if that's okay.
Okay. Yep.
Aaron, any questions or comments?
I have nothing.
Okay. I don't have anything pending Gene's review of the edits. Peter?
Yeah, the applicant's attorney mentioned the size of rounds, the max size of rounds, but I didn't hear what was the maximum size round that would be allowed at this facility.
Peter, I'm not an expert in this, but I understand it's a 308. I don't know if that means anything to you, or if Jen wants to chime in.
Nope, also, if that's a 308,
Yeah.
that answers my question. And with respect to your reference that I think words to the effect of all the gun clubs that you're aware of operate 24/7. Did you mean that literally?
Yes, I mean, that's been our experience. Not every, I can't say that I've checked on every gun club in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but that question came up a lot during the ZBA meetings, and we had someone who's traveled all over New England, all over the country, and his experience has been over 200 ranges, and they're all 24/7. And I can tell you that the applicant and her husband have been members of clubs, and they're 24/7. And of course, a lot of those clubs allow the members to bring a guest in 24/7, which is kind of what we were hoping for with the ZBA. They didn't feel comfortable with that. And so the way we look at that, Peter, is that maybe that gives people incentive to become members, I hope. I don't know. We'll see.
So I'm not an expert on hours of operation for gun clubs, but my understanding is that for some or many, if not all, I really don't know the proportion, but certainly some of them manage that 24-hour access using key card access as a safety precaution. This facility intend to use something similar?
Peter, that's an excellent question. That's actually one of the two flow charts that I mentioned in my opening remarks, that although we submitted an SOP and we gave a supplemental narrative on the 28th of February, I neglected to bring this up at our last hearing on the 14th. I thought I had, because there's been so much water under the bridge. But members coming in after hours would need to use a fob to get into the vestibule, and then they need to use a biometric, which is going to be a fingerprint, I believe, in order to get into the facility. And they will only have access to the firing range and to into the bathrooms. There'll be no access to the retail. All that will be locked and closed.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Kate?
I just wanted to confirm that the retail wasn't open 24 hours.
The retail is just open during the business hours?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And does the fob security prevent someone from showing up with a guest? Is there any security to check that?
Well, the place is going to be monitored by cameras, and if a member brings in a guest against the rule, because they're all going to have to sign off on these standard operating procedures and rules, their membership, there'll be a zero tolerance for that, Kate, and their membership will be terminated.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, any questions, comments?
Just a question in terms of the after-hour use again. How much do you anticipate there really will be for after-hours use? Is there, I mean, we're talking 100 people a night, 2 people a week?
Well, there'll be some, but I can't give you a numeric on that. There'll be some only because of the nature of those first responders hours, and quite frankly, not just first responders, but anybody who's a member who has a license to carry. I mean, if you're going to be open 10 to 8 Sunday through Thursday, and you get out of work at 5 or 6 o'clock, it really doesn't give you much time to get over there and shoot. And so, same thing with the weekends. Maybe you can do it on the weekends, or maybe you're doing other things with family and friends. So, very tough to answer what kind of numbers. There will be some that'll do it, and we really need to have that in order to compete with those ranges that offer it.
So I have a kind of a question thought. I mean, I have no problem with the 24/7 in theory. What about, I assume that there's no alcohol allowed on
That's
site,
correct.
right?
That's
So is there,
correct, Mr. Chairman.
is there any
That's correct,
way,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah, is there any way
Well,
to, go ahead.
I would just say, I think you know a little bit about my background. I actually have tried cases where people have been charged with carrying a firearm while under the influence. And of course, not only could you face a criminal penalty and incarceration for such a charge, but you're definitely just being charged with that crime. You're going to jeopardize your license to carry, and you're probably never going to get it back. So that's the risk with anybody consuming alcohol. People are going to be, during the normal business hours, you know, Sunday through Thursday, you know, 10 to 8, and weekends 10 to 9, you know, they're going to be staffed. They're greeting people at the door. I can tell you, we put this in the standard operating procedures. If there's anybody that does anything like being under the influence of alcohol or that, not only are they going to jeopardize their membership, they're probably going to get reported to the chief of police, who's going to pull their license to carry or report it to the town wherever they have the license to carry. And so people with licenses, I know these things, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, and they're not going to jeopardize their license to carry. I suppose some might, but I'm just trying to tell you how we'll respond to anything that we see like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much it's really even our province on our site plan review, but I'm just kind of get a sense of it. Okay. Jean, do you want to go through any of the open questions or edits in the decision?
First, I just want to make a couple clarifying points. So Kevin,
Sure.
again, do I understand correctly that the 24/7, that's the overnight hours are not staffed? They're just video surveillance only, but there's no staff on
That's
site?
correct.
Okay,
That's correct. After 8 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday, there won't be staff. After 9 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays, there will not be staff.
okay, so, Aton, for your discussion decision, although I included the hours as a finding of fact, I mean, it's up to the board whether to keep that finding of fact. We don't often specify the hours. It was just testimony before you as to why I included it as the finding. And I'm glad I did, because that's what alerted me to this 24-hour operation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a finding, because I don't know how concrete they are. Once they come to their opening, those might change, and I'm not sure that it's your purview, to be honest, but that's just for your consideration. As far as the parking, there's been a lot of reference to parking reduction. The way I've drafted the decision is a common parking area special permit. And so there are multiple uses in this building. They actually show on their site plan now the 77 spaces that the building commissioner has deemed necessary, some of which are way down at the recycling facility. And so that building exists on the same lot. So it's really belt and suspender approach, where I'm including the common parking facility special permit, but they do in fact delineate the 77 spaces required. Only some of which are around this existing facility, but they're all on the same lot. So those were my only comments. And I'm
Okay.
sorry, one other, I did in the documents that are deemed part of this decision include really more documents than I would typically include. So I did include the standing operating procedures, the design guidelines, the construction memos that were submitted. And those were all submitted in response to the questions you raised at the January 7th opening hearing date on the 14th. And so I did reference those, and they are also referenced in the ZBA decision.
Okay, well, I think that's good, just because this use is very different than anything else that we have. So I'd still like to have some hooks in case we do need to make some sort of modification if something is not running properly. It sounds like everything is lined up to run really well, but it would be nice to be able to have some leeway if we need to make modifications.
Yeah, and it's at least what you've made your basis of your decision on, so. That was important to
Correct. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, Attorney Foley, thank you, and thank you to the applicant. I think we are really basing part of the allowance, hopefully, of this on the fact that you have these operating procedures, the fact that all the steps that you've taken to make sure that this is safe, and the flip side of that is if there is a problem, then we'll have you back in to deal with it. But I think we're relying on the professionalism that's been shown that will carry through towards the running of the facility. So if no one else has any questions, can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
This is Aaron. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the site plan review for 210 Holt Road.
And moved
This is John. I'll second.
and moved by Aaron and seconded by John. Okay, so let's look over the draft decision.
Hey, Tom, can you just do a roll call on that motion, please?
Oh, sure. Motion to close the public hearing. John?
John votes yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote to close the public hearing. Peter?
Peter, yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
Thank you, Gene.
So again, John, I'll leave number 7 of the finding of fact to your discussion here as to whether you want to include hours of operation. And I'll comment on number 11. I've detailed the date of the timestamp from the ZBA decision. The vote was actually taken on June 9th, so I'm indifferent as to which one you want to consider the final action, the June 9th or June 22nd, which is the timestamp date at the clerk's office.
Do the timestamp date.
Okay.
John, in terms of number 7,
Yeah.
just in response to Gene's comment on somebody making a milkshake.
I'm listening.
I'll take coffee and chocolate down. Yeah, the hours of operation are of less concern to me, but what is of some level of interest is that the 24-hour is linked to members only.
Yeah.
And I think that element, from my perspective, might be appropriate to retain in the document.
Okay.
This is Kate. I agree with that.
I'm content leaving it all in, and if the hours change, then we can deem it a minor modification, and just make the change. But I'm fine with having them out either. So it doesn't really
Okay.
matter to me.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? And just looking at the draft, I did not point out to the planner that it was 10 to 8 on weekdays, because the draft says 10 to 7. It's what we're really proposing was 10 to 8. So I missed that when I reviewed it, but I see it now.
Is that what was?
It should be number 7. If you're going to leave the hours in, I'm just. We're
did
looking
the
at
ZBA?
Sunday through Thursday, 10.
Yeah.
10
Did
to
the
8.
ZBA? Did the ZBA set the hours?
No.
Okay. So then let's just take out the hours. So can we just make it then 24-hour access or even access outside of business hours will be for members only.
So Aton, for the ZBA decision, they conditioned access to the facility when unstaffed shall be limited to members of the facility, which, for the sake of clarity and removing all doubt, shall prohibit the access by guests of members.
Okay, so I like that one, unstaffed. I like that.
Okay, so I'll copy the ZBA one into that finding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave the date on number 11 to June 22nd. And on
Yes, please.
condition 28, Attorney Foley had suggested some language after engineering practices to be in accordance with UL 752 level 8 standard. And I would,
Okay,
we do add that as well.
very good.
Gene, this is Peter. I have a question on number 16.
All right, so we have email correspondence from Chief Gray that states that.
So my question was just the way it's worded, that layout and safety features are consistent, but no mention of 24-hour unstaffed operation. And I was assuming that the police department would have included that as one of the things they're okay with, if they're okay with it. And I don't have that email in front of me. Do you know if the police department review included not only layout and safety features, but also the unsupervised 24-hour operations?
I don't know that, Peter. All I do know is that, in my opinion, and I was at both of these meetings, I did not hear discussion related to the 24-hour access in front of the planning board. In review of the ZBA decision, it's obviously that it was discussed at the ZBA meeting, and that's why I had those edits in red tonight to make sure that that discussion was reviewed with you. If the applicant's testimony that every other range that they visited is 24-hour access, I would assume that our police chief is familiar with other ranges, and if that's the case there, he was probably under the understanding it would be here.
No, it just strikes me that that's the sort of thing that the police department would want to take note of. And I agree with you that I don't recall any discussion of the 24-hour at our meetings either. So it's a question that I hope I would have raised earlier if this had been discussed, if my memory serves me. I don't know if process here allows us to confirm that the chief, in fact, is aware of that and that he is okay with that in his safety review. And if process allows that, I would be interested in that feedback, but I don't know if that's possible.
So I would suggest you could condition that that's reviewed with the police chief, and if he has any objection or whatnot, the applicant should come back to the planning board or something to
That would be fine with me. And Eton, if that's possible, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we can do that. That if, why don't we ask the police chief to, when the building is done and just operating procedures are finalized, maybe he could review them and submit commentary to us if there are any issues regarding the hours or the setup.
Yeah, I would like to specify there somewhere that it's to the point of 24 hours at include, after hours, non-supervised member only. Just sort of specific like the ZBA was, that I just want some documentation that the correct authority, I mean, I know we've been told that it's commonly done and that's helpful, but for our purposes here, in terms of due diligence, we should know that from the police chief. This is his lane.
So I would I would suggest a condition specific to that, Peter. And Aton, to speak to your point, the chief on his email correspondence did indicate that once the building is built, he'll follow the plans through and address any concerns he has.
Okay, so if we could just have a condition that we'll get a letter or an email from the chief that the 24/7 is acceptable to his safety standards, that he believes that is not a problem.
Yeah, well, it's it's really three
And,
things.
and unstaffed.
It's unstaffed, 24-hour, and members only. And of course, the members only, I mean, that's, I think, a useful restriction, but we should make sure the chief has visibility on that.
Yep. Okay, so I'll condition that prior to a building permit site work,
Great.
that
Thank
he
you, Jen.
provides correspondence confirming that he's okay with it.
Thank you.
Okay,
And,
anybody else? Go ahead.
Just a note here, Eitan, to the applicant's attorney. I mean, I don't think any of us, and I know I am not trying to cause a delay here, but I think if we'd had an opportunity to, think this through earlier, we could have addressed these questions earlier. So, at least from my perspective, it's really the first opportunity to address them. So my hope is that there's no delay here.
Very good. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or edits recommended? Okay. If not, then could we get a motion to approve the site plan review and common parking area special permit as amended tonight?
So moved, Peter.
Can we get a second, please?
John, I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? John?
I vote yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Eitan, I vote yes. Peter?
Peter, yes.
And Kate?
Yes.
All right. Site plan review and common parking area special permit 210 Holt Road MMD shooting is approved as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Gene.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. Very good. Okay. We shall now move on. And I don't have my agenda in front of me anymore. Okay, Gene, next.
I would just
Elect-
ask you, your motion to accept the continuance for Brook School, 1060 Osgood, Grapevine Road, 1160 Grapevine Road.
Okay, can we get a motion to accept the continuance for 1160 Great Pond Road?
Is there a motion made?
Peter, second.
In favor, John?
John votes yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes. Peter?
Yes, Peter.
Kate?
Yes.
Okay, continued until August 18th. Northern Essex Registry of Deeds signature authorization?
Actually, Aton, above that is election of officers.
Oh, thank you, Miss Allen. Election of officers. Yes, thank you.
So for the last several years, we've had this. The Board of Selectmen highly recommend that we elect officers each year. I think in my opinion, the preference would be to rotate it, but there's no mandate to rotate chairs. So I would just ask that, I believe Aaron is the vice chair right now and Aton is the chair. And so if you could make a motion to elect officers for the upcoming year.
Great, thank you, Jane. All right, moment of truth. Does anybody want any particular position or not want any particular position?
I think we should stay the way we are.
All right, Mr. Simon says to stay the way we are.
Peter, second.
Seconded to stay the way we are. Okay, so a motion made to continue with myself as the chair, Aaron as the vice chair. Aaron, you good with that?
Yeah, sure. It's been
All
an
right.
easy ride as vice chair the last year.
I'll have to take more vacations. Okay, so motion made, seconded, motion to approval. John
John votes yes.
and Aaron.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Peter,
Peter, yes.
Kate.
Yes.
All right. Next
Okay.
up, yeah.
Can I just confirm the motion was John and the second was Peter, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So next up is the North Essex Registry of Deeds signature authorization. And the reason I have chairman highlighted here is we needed to do the election of offices prior. And so the yellow highlight would be removed. I've updated all the terms. 3 people were up for reappointments. All 3 were reappointed. And so the term dates are accurate. This would authorize, well, I have been authorized, but this just updates the list of board members and removes Monica from the authorized signature.
And for everyone who did not know, Monica left her position last week.
Yes, was past Thursday.
Okay, so yeah, that would be the reason for that. Okay, so do we need a motion for this?
Yes, please.
All right, so can we get a motion to update the document for the Registry of Deeds?
So moved, Peter.
This is Kate. I'll make the second.
Okay, John,
I vote yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Eitan, I vote yes. Peter,
Yes.
and Kate.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so on this one, I have a little logistics issue. Eitan, I need everyone to sign this document. So
Okay.
how would people like to go about that? I can be at town hall for certain hours. If it's easier for people, I can come to your house and have you sign it if people are working remotely at home.
I can,
Can we sign electronically?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. I think so, I think that's allowed under the COVID regulations anyways. So let's go that route and then,
I mean, can you put it in the PDF and then just there's signature capability in the PDF and you could just pass it around?
okay.
I mean, I don't know. Does the signature have to match up with what your regular signature is? Because it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't think it's that finite, John, so let's try that route and I will bring it. Well, I don't know that they're open yet, but I'll get confirmation from them whether it's acceptable. So we'll try that first.
Yeah.
Great. Can we get a motion?
If you do, by the way, if you do need to, I can come down to town hall because I'm home every day now.
Okay.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the minutes from June 8th?
So moved.
Moved by John. Wait a
Peter,
second.
second.
Peter, second. John, vote.
John votes yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
I vote yes. Peter
Yes.
and Kate.
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything before we adjourn? Good job once again, everyone, on this remote.
Yes, I have an item, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
This is Peter. I have to say that I know that we've had a lot of things going on and COVID has certainly made it challenging for everybody, town employees and everyone to get normal things done. But I have to say that I am troubled and discouraged that there's apparently been no response from the town to provide the Watershed Special Permit Authority, this board, with a very basic level analysis of water conditions tested in the lake. This is the only objective measure we have available for an assessment of the condition of the watershed. It requires no additional cost on the part of the town. The testing of the lake water and the tributaries has been done essentially since 1986. It's a routine testing operation. And the level of analysis we've asked for is very, very basic, just plotting the results of phosphorus, nitrogen, and perhaps one or two others, chloride or oxygen, on a graph over time so that we can see over the last 5 years or over the last 10 years, is the condition of the drinking water supply improving, stable, or degrading. This is the most basic level of analysis, and the planning board is the special permitting authority for the watershed. It's been 35 years since the watershed plan was done. Development in the watershed has expanded significantly, and I think this is at a not insignificant level of concern as to why the complete unresponsiveness to this basic routine and important request for feedback that incurs no cost to the town. And I just want the board to know, and in particular the chairman, but the board, that I think this is completely unacceptable.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any suggestions for other avenues that we may be able to take? I mean, my initial thought is to resend our letter that we previously sent to the new town manager. I don't even know if she was on board when we initially made our request. I don't remember.
Yes, I think that's entirely appropriate. I'll let the board members speak, on their own, but I think it's absolutely appropriate for you as chairman to note the special permit authority of the board for the watershed. Preferably note the date of the original request, which was well before COVID. And to ask that this very low impact request be honored, or a reason given for why it is not being provided. And I think that's important to document in the record of the planning board. If there are conditions in the lake, the water supply, that are degrading, and the special permitting authority has not been made aware of that after having made a request, I would like the documentation to show that the request has been made.
And would you be open to scheduling a phone meeting with the town manager and then someone from DPW and the water department to discuss why we haven't gotten this and when we can expect to get this information?
I would be open to do that on two conditions: that it be someone on the board other than me, preferably you as chairman, and that it include the town manager rather than just DPW.
Okay. Jean, any suggestions?
No, I think that reissuing that memo with the additional information Peter just added would be appropriate.
Okay, so then I would ask on behalf of the board that if you could just get that documentation in order for me, and I'll look at it, but that we send it to the new town manager, to water department, to DPW, and request one, the production of the documents, and two, a meeting to either discuss them or to discuss why we don't have them, because we'd like to evaluate whether or not our special permit criteria are appropriate, and we can't do so without documentation.
Thanks. I really appreciate you entertaining this, Eitan. And I would also ask that if members of the board disagree or object, I would more than welcome hearing any of those comments.
Other members have any thoughts?
No, this is Aaron. No, I actually agree with Peter, and it does seem like such a basic thing to be able to provide. I guess my question is, whom has the board specifically reached out to, and when? And can we put a? I know it's hard that we're asking for information, but it doesn't seem to be forthcoming. Is there some way we can put some kind of deadline, some sense of urgency on this? Because Peter's right. He's been patient with this. He brings it up every couple of months. It is time to get resolution.
The only thing I could suggest is that we put this as a discussion item on our next agenda and invite the DPW head and the water department and the town manager to that meeting. If we don't have the documents we need, then we need to know why. So I'd rather have that discussion where we can figure it out, and maybe there's reasons for it, and then have the discussion about should we make any amendments to our watershed special permits. But I think if we put it on our agenda and we invite them to the meeting, then we can talk about it there as well.
Eitan, I would just add a suggestion. I think the first
Yeah.
approach is going to be to have an offline meeting with potentially yourself and Peter in that group. And then based on that discussion and what they provide there, maybe they don't need to come to a meeting. You guys can convey what was discussed and what the evidence shown at a planning board meeting, rather than the initial meeting being there.
So I agree with that. I think my point more clearly was we should still schedule it to be on our agenda. That way, that gives us, as well as whomever needs to provide the information, kind of some deadline so that we can actually have a date where we're going to talk about it. So if we're going to talk about it at the August meeting, we need to have a meeting offline before that to know what we're going to talk about.
And just, would it be appropriate if we can't get the testing that Peter's looking for? Do we have any authority to get the testing done ourselves if it's something that we need to see? I mean, if that's the issue?
Well, I would just offer that, look, I think it's a great question. I don't know if the planning board has the authority. I will say that the water department has had a testing regimen since 1986 for both the treated water, which those are tests that are published on the website, and those are the tests that are compared to the EPA standards for the water that goes into the potable water supply. And that's all good, and the water plant does a great job of that, and that's not what I'm focused on. What I'm focused on is they have an existing testing regimen where they actually go out in a boat, they test the water at different areas around the lake at different depths, and they test the tributaries coming into the lake. That's an existing program. And by simply putting those results onto a graph and no data analysis required, that just tells you, is the condition of the body of water improving, stable, or degraded? And that's the thing that the planning board needs, because you can actually trace it to, hey, everything's stable except this one tributary coming from this one neighborhood. Now, there may be nothing that we can do about that, but it at least informs us that that neighborhood is impacting the water supply negative. And that's the kind of thing that we should at least be aware of. And so a long-winded answer to your question, if the water department does this, it's using an existing process, existing people, and existing tests. So the notion of repeating what they already have capability of, that just, I don't know if that would make sense, but I still think it's a good question.
And Peter, I would add that we'd be starting now and going forward with testing where they have that past data. They have multiple years of that past data that they could plot.
That's a great point, Gene, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because the other point I wanted to make is if we were to get the results of a test in the lake, it would mean absolutely nothing. First, we're not scientists. And second, a single test is just a snapshot. So the whole idea here, to Gene's point, is you want to look at the routine tests that have been done over the last 5 or 10 years, just plot it out in a line on the graph. Is the line going up? Is the line steady? Is the line going down? And that's just how we hold it.
Kelly, this is Nathan again. I think that was a good question as well. The other thing that what we do have the capability to do is make a public records request. Again, I don't want to, seems like that would be overkill. It should be just something that if we ask for it, it gets provided, but that's something we can discuss if we need to at our next meeting too, making a formal request, for the data that way. Again,
Sure.
not something I really would want to have to do, but it's possible. Okay.
And this is Aaron. Is there any way we can rope ComCon into this? CONCOM, sorry.
Aaron, this is Peter. I think that's a very good suggestion. I would just add to that, my perspective is that the other town board that really has an equity here is, I would think, the Board of Health, because drinking water has such an impact for people. We use the drinking water more than anything else other than air. Especially for long-term residents, that yes, the treated water meets the EPA standards, but there's more to drinking water than that, especially with long-term exposure. So I think CONCOM's a great idea, but I also think the Board of Health would also be interested in this, although for them, it's true, it's more the tests of the treated water that would be more of a direct concern for them.
Okay. Well, Gene, if you could put a discussion of this item on our next agenda and then make the inquiry we discussed, or help draft it with me, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Anybody else before did we do the minutes? We did, right? Yes. All right. We get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
This is Aaron.
All right. Moved by John.
Aaron second.
John vote.
Yes.
John votes yes. Aaron.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Peter.
Yes.
Thank you. And Kate.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is August 18th, maybe?
Yes, August 18th.
Okay.
Wow.
That's because the first meeting in August is usually National Night Out. I would expect that's probably not going to happen this year, but your posted meeting agenda did not include the first meeting in August.
This year it'll be National Night In.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. Your next
Yeah.
meeting is July 21st.
Oh, we have a July meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
July
Oh.
21st. I'm sorry.
Oh, what do we know? Yes, July 21st. Yes.
But I would suggest this discussion item being on the August 18th. I don't know.
Yeah, let's give it a little time. Yeah.
Okay. So on the 21st, you do have a public hearing opening and a couple A&R plans.
Okay. Great. See you guys in 2 weeks then.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.